The G20 Summit will be the first gathering of the leaders of the world's biggest economies since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So what are the impacts of Putin's absence at the G20? We're going to talk more about that right here in the first talk show of our day. Right here with studio, we have Lab 45 Economy and Politics Policy Analysis, Mas Reyhan. Noor, good morning, Mas Reyhan. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Good morning.
It is such an exciting time right here in Indonesia, especially with the G20 Summit itself. At first, I think it was last year, we heard that President Vladimir Putin was coming. I think we were very, excited for that. Also, in talks before, the Ukraine President Zelensky will also, wanted to attend and whatnot. But now we're already seeing it's coming close to the date. We know that Russian President Vladimir Putin will not come to Indonesia, but he already sent his representative, his delegate, as the minister. Lavrov will be coming here. So do you think the leaders' declaration will be as valid if, let's say, President Putin will be here in person?
Yeah, in my opinion, it will be still valid because, the declaration has been made before the summit, and there has been an enormous amount of working hours, like meetings and negotiations between countries. So everything that happened in the Bali for the next 2 days, it will be expected as what we already see before. So I think the declaration will be still valid. So either Mr. Putin or
whoever they represent,
represent the Russia.
Mas Reyhan, so we do know that a couple of months ago, President Joko Widodo made a groundbreaking visit as not only did he visit Ukraine, not long after, he went immediately to Russia as well, with the absence of President Putin at the G20 summit. How is this going to affect relations? Because we do know that Indonesia is now seen as quite a neutral country that is able to at least attempt to form a bridge between Russia and Ukraine. Relations are good with both nations. Will this impact the relations between Russia and Indonesia going forward? And how is this going to affect the Russian relationship with other nations around Southeast Asia as well?
It's an interesting question because the relationship between Indonesia and Russia and another Southeast Asian countries has already been good for now. But maybe it doesn't impact significantly for the relation because we have already agreement other than G20, and the G20 is a forum, so it's a non-binding commitment for the countries. The other commitment will be made maybe at the bilateral or multilateral level between countries. So I think the impact will not be as significant as will be expected.
All right. Okay.
All right. And of course, with the things that you have said before now, Indonesia has been reluctant to, not choosing sides, especially on the invasion of Russia and Ukraine. And even though Ukraine and also the International Committee, tries to not have Russia to come and attend, I think it was Indonesia's principle to, invite both countries to come into the summit itself. But now it is likely, and like we talked before, that President Vladimir Zelensky, or excuse me, President Zelensky will be the one that's attending through online. Do you think that's kind of giving that kind of like, picture that, the International Committee, kind of outshine Russia for not coming in? And how do Indonesia should respond to that?
I think Mr. Lavrov is already a good representative for Russia, especially for Mr. Putin, because he is a foreign affairs minister from Russia, and he is the one who is capable to attend at this kind of summit. And I think it doesn't necessarily exclude Russia from the international forum because of the absence of Mr. President Putin.
Yeah, so having him is already a valid, validation that Russia is a part of this forum itself.
Of course, a big part at that.
Yeah.
Now, let's rewind a little bit to earlier this year in July. The Russian Foreign Affairs Minister did come to Bali, and there was a moment where he walked out when Western delegates denounced the invasion in Ukraine. I have a two-part question. First of all, do you think that President Vladimir Putin's decision to not attend the G20 summit is to avoid any sort of, I don't want to say confrontation because it wasn't really a confrontation, but a silent protest, if you will, and sort of causing a distraction at the G20 summit? And do you think there will be a possibility of a situation like that happening? Because, again, President Putin is not there, but he does have a representative there in Sergei Lavrov.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think Mr. Putin's actions not to attend the G20 is a very wise movement from Mr. Putin because there will be a chaos maybe.
Tension, definitely, right?
Tension,
Already, yeah.
The tension will be very high, and I think it's very wise for President Putin not to come. But it is maybe too shame for Indonesia not being able to bring Mr. Putin here.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Yeah, it's
Very
too bad,
few
yeah.
at 10. So do you think then is there still a possibility of any sort of silent protest like this still happening? Because Russia, technically, like you mentioned, is still in attendance. It's just not President Putin himself.
Yeah, maybe if the forum talks about the Russian invasion to Ukraine specifically condemn Russia for the invasion, I think there are possibilities that Mr. Lavrov will do the same as he was in July, the walkout from the forum.
Yeah, because it's not, I mean, it's been repeated over and over that this is not the actual platform to discuss the ongoing war in Ukraine. Unfortunately, a lot of the issues that are being addressed in G20 is impacted from the invasion in Ukraine right now. If you're talking about the energy crisis or inflation, it all still kind of ties in somewhat to, so it's a hard issue to avoid.
Exactly, right? That is like the big, like the cherry on top of
It's
it.
the
And
elephant in the room.
Exactly.
Yeah,
What is happening this year alone is because of the invasion itself. So it kind of like impacted a dominant effect to everything that's going to be the agenda of topics that's going to be, you know, a part of the agenda for the summit itself. Now, we're going to talk about, in general, Mas Reyhan, when you're seeing a forum or a summit and whatnot, there's that photo, like a symbolic photo session where all the leaders are going to be taking part of that. Does like the position itself means anything? Like, you know, certain president will be on the far left or far right or in the middle?
Recently, there are rumors that the summit will forego the photo sessions.
Really?
Yeah, because I don't know what happens, but there are multiple rumors from the foreign
Yes, please,
media.
dish us in.
Well, yeah,
Yes,
what are some of them?
Spill it for us, please.
No. I just from the multiple media outlets from outside Indonesia, rumors that there will be no photo session for the leaders at the G20 summit.
Okay.
But if there is, I think Mr. Lavrov will be placed or positions on the far right of the frame.
Yeah.
Because as we can see in 2014, when Russia do annexations to Crimea,
Yes.
Mr. Putin attended the G20 summit in 2014, but he was placed, I don't know, was placed or he just chose to stood there at the far right of the frame.
Okay.
So in terms of the position, maybe Mr. Lavrov will be positioned himself or at the far right too.
All right. So there's that certain kind of like
body language.
Moment.
Yeah.
Of course, of course. I can't wait for, I'm not that I cannot wait for the tension, but I cannot wait to see of the overall. And I think, you know, even though there are so many, you know, right now tensions around the world and whatnot, and, you know, we're really in an unstable moment, but I think the leaders should be very wise and very mature to kind of like, you know, in terms of making all this agenda happen.
Well, I mean, everyone is like-minded in the sense that I believe all world leaders want to find solutions to the problems that we're currently facing. So let's tackle some of these right now. Let's go a little bit more in depth. We talked about the energy crisis. We talked about rising prices. These are going to be issues that obviously will be discussed. Do you think that there will be a different outcome or there'll be a difficulty in finding solutions because of the absence of Vladimir Putin? Because, yes, despite Sergei Lavrov being there as a representative, is he truly any sort of a decision maker? Does he have the power to be able to speak on behalf of President Putin? And if not, then what is going to happen? Like we see, just going to convey messages that were mentioned at the G20 Summit to President Putin, and will that have a different impact on finding solutions for our current problems?
Yeah, in my perspective, the G20 Summit is already planned and prepared long before the summit, maybe for the past 12 months at least.
True.
So any discussion for further negotiations maybe will be made between countries as a bilateral or multilateral agreement, just like as you said, Paul. So the agreement between Russia or maybe Ukraine The most important things to see is the Black Sea deal, because Black Sea deal, Russia and Ukraine can transport their grain crops from the country to another. It will be ended on this Saturday. So,
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
It's quite
so-
sure. And they're actually looking to renew that, right?
Yeah, so there's a question whether the deal will be continue or not. So the negotiation between those countries is more important maybe for
True.
the energy crisis or maybe a food crisis in the world.
Do a lot of these side talks happen at these summits? Because obviously it's
Yeah.
not just the conference itself.
The meetings.
Yes, there's
Yeah.
going to be a lot of side meetings. Do you think that a lot of these side meetings at this particular summit will be productive? Because there are a lot of issues to tackle between countries, like you said.
Yeah, but at the G20 Summit, the Ukraine representative will attend online.
Right.
So I think there will be no straightforward discussions between Russia and Ukraine about the Black Sea deal.
Yeah.
But maybe the discussion will be a talk with other countries, other major countries, maybe like US and Europe or other maybe Middle East countries, because they really need the grains crops for, like we're in Indonesia.
supply.
We
Absolutely.
eat rice, but they eat the grains. So I think there will be talk about it, but the real agreement or negotiation maybe will be discussed later.
Maybe
closed
they can
doors.
have a discussion with Turkey, because Turkey was the middleman for this. So, I mean, there's a lot of parties that can be involved in this.
True.
Now, Mas Reyhan, again, like Paul mentioned, it is the elephant in the room, right? We're talking about a G20 summit. The war is still ongoing and whatnot. Now, how do you foresee your own analysis? How do you see now the war in Ukraine itself? We've known, a couple of days, or like, the Russians' army already left out of Kherson. I think that's such a great deal, right? We're seeing a positive light in this. How do we see forward of the ending of this invasion itself?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's very hard to answer because I think the most important thing to see for the continue of war in Ukraine, it's how they can finance the war. So on the Russian side, they have faced sanctions from major countries,
Correct.
especially from the Western countries.
Yeah.
And it already limited the Russia capacity to finance the war. But on the other hand, Ukraine also faced the same issue, because we see the midterm elections in the United States on the Sunday,
Yeah.
and the latest result.
Republican is the majority.
Favorable for Republican
Yes.
in the House,
Yes.
but Democrat maybe will control the Senate.
Yeah.
This disparity from House and Senate will create tension for United States,
Yes.
especially Joe Biden, to create another bill to support Ukraine for the war.
Yes.
Especially, it's not just about financially, but about the military supply.
Correct.
Yes. So I think the America First Republicans will be the one who against the bill for
course.
supporting Russia. Supporting Ukraine.
Yes, yeah, we're just talking about that, in regards to the midterm election. Again, like Mas Reyhan said, the Republicans are always thinking about their country first. So again,
right.
if they're going to win the Senate itself or the House of Representatives, it's going to be very hard for Joe Biden to kind of push that agenda.
Yeah, looking forward to finding out the election results. Obviously, it might
Yes.
take some time, though, before we
Yes.
actually have confirmation. Mas Reyhan, thank you so much for your time and joining us this Monday morning. Obviously, we are very excited leading up into this G20 Summit, and we look forward to having, hopefully, a productive one this time around.
Yes.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank
All
you
right.
for having me.
Time for us to take another short break here on the program. When we return, we're going to recap some of our earlier stories for you, just in case you're just joining us. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.